Good evening, everyone. It looks like we're going to Yud. So it says like this: אף על פי the tour, אף על פי ששיעורם ברביעית יוסיף ליטול בשפע. So we said this already in the tour that even though the minimum amount you have to wash with is revi'it, which is 3 ounces, right? But you should add more to it, make it like abundant. Demar Rav Chazda ana mashai maloch maya. So Rav Hasna said, right, that what I do is I use lots of water, and because of that, right, they give me lots of blessings. So we see from there, right, that you should try to use more. Don't be cheap. Don't be frugal with that. בפרק במה אישה יוצא, so in this perk, Samech Bet Amud Bet, right, which is in Shabbat, it says over there, Amai de'aminan b'demizalzel b'ntinat yadayim, mevi et ha'adam lidei aniyut. Right, we said over there that if a person disregards netilat yadayim, it brings him to poverty. Amar Rabba lo amaran ela de lo masha yadeh. So Rabba says, Aval masha vela masha. We only said if they didn't wash his hands, but if he washed and didn't wash, letlamba, we don't care. What does that mean? Rashi explains, masha velo masha sheno rochetz umshafshef. Right, so he says right that he washes. I'm sorry, he doesn't wash and rub his hands. Well, elam miat maim. So he uses a little bit of water. Kagon revi'it, right? Metzumtzan, like only the revi'it, right? Which we said is 3 ounces. Ve'asikna ala. So we conclude there. Ve'lav minutahi. So he says, but it's not correct. This right. The Amar Rav Chazda, because Rav Chazda said, right, that as we said, right? Ana mashai melochov na'imaya. What does that mean? I use lots of water, right? And ve'avili melochov na'itivuta. So they give me lots of goodness. It's good to have goodness. All right, there you go. Right. So therefore, we see from this Gemara that even though there's sort of a machloket in the Talmud, but the halacha is that you should try to use lots of water, right? So, if you get your standard natilat cup, we call that, right, in Hebrew, natilat cup. We call that natla, right? So if you get a good natla, it should be nice and large, jumbo size, right? So this way you can wash, liberally with lots of water, right? That's what you want. And right? Even though the truth is, we're going to talk about this later on, but just mentioning this now, that even though, according to halakha, really, you need to wash only once each hand, but the custom by the Sfaradim is to wash 3 times each hand.
Are you allowed to refill the cup if you didn't quite have enough water for 3 times?
Yeah, sure, you can fill it up. Yeah, refill it. But, if you got a big one, right, there's no need. That's the advantage. It's less work, So, yeah. There you go. So, yeah, that's the story there. So, yeah, as we said, right, Sfaradim do 3 times. If I'm not mistaken, Ashkenazim, they do twice. That's their custom,
Kavod Harav, I do 3 times. That's how I learned.
Yeah, because I'm making you into a Sephardi now. You're getting brainwashed. I'm getting brainwashing you. That's why, probably.
All the Ashkenazim that I know wash 3 times as well.
Oh, is that true? Oh, okay. Maybe I'm mistaken. But the truth is, I have seen many Ashkenazim who do twice.
Sometimes they're like sloppy with like slop, whatever. But you alternate.
Okay. Well, 3 times is a good thing, So if an Ashkenazi did it, he has nothing to. He didn't lose anything.
You alternate in the morning. You don't have to alternate before bread, right?
Right. We don't alternate. Right. That's true. Yes, we don't alternate. By the way, the reason why we alternate in the morning is because the Zohar says to do like that. According to the Kabbalah, this is like the coolest way to do it, the most holy way. But when it comes to meals, right, it's not relevant there. Why is that? Because in the morning, right, the whole thing is ruach ra, evil spirit on the hands. So in order to remove that, right, the alternate is better. But when it comes to washing for bread, right, there's no evil spirit issue. Just a matter of cleanliness there. So therefore it's a different rule altogether. Similar but different. Okay, very good. So yeah, that's the way it is. But the truth is, right, if a person doesn't have a lot of water, let's say, right, he's got very limited amount, right? He can just do once, that's good enough. According to halakha, it's fine. But if he's got plenty of water, right, okay, so go for it, right?
Rabbi, I have heard that some people washes their hands 40 times.
40 times. Well,
they are Kabbalah, so
what they used to say, right? What they used to say, the kids in my school when I was young, leave some water for the fish, What's going to be left for the fish if you do it 40 times? Okay. There's no need to, there's no Kabbalah like that. No such a thing like that. I don't know where they got this from. No Kabbalah, no Jabbalah. Just some kind of strange stuff. Okay, whatever, right? So anyway, that's the story there. So yeah, 3 times is a custom. And as we said, right, some Ashkenazim, they do twice. It's good. It's all good. It's all good. There's a reason, by the way, why we do 3 times. There's a reason for everything, not just some kind of random number. The halakha requires only once. So then why do 3 times for what? So the truth is that they say like this, if I remember correctly, I saw in one book, it says there that The first time we do it, it's to remove the dirt on the hands, if it's something dirty there. Second time is to actually cleanse, the clean hand from tuma, from impurity. And then the third one is to remove the impure water from your hands. That's why we do 3 times. It's nice. You can't beat it. Okay, very good. That's the story there. Let me go. Okay, so we'll go to Shulchan Aruch. Okay, so it says here, Apapi Sheshuram Brevit, as we said, right? Even though the minimum size is Revi'it, right? So, right, it says in the parentheses here, in terms of volume, right? How much is that? So, as we said, right, for us, it's 3 ounces. That's how it translates. But he says it's basically an egg and a half. That's what he says here. 1 egg and a half. So as we said, right, in terms of weight, that would be, if you translate it into weight, that would be around 75 cc's, something like that, whatever. Yeah, it's really like 80, That's what it is.
cc's is volume. Are you talking about grams?
Right, but I'm in terms of the if you're measuring it as a liquid, right, cc's,
Okay, that's volume.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, gotcha.
It's just, it's supposed to be the same thing more or less, right? Well, yeah. Volume, weight, whatever. So
No, 2 different things.
no, what I'm trying to say is that in terms of it's equal, In other words, cc's in volume equals gram in weight.
No, it doesn't. But okay.
Well, what I'm saying, am I mistaken?
Yeah, cc's in volume equals milliliters in volume. cc's in
Right,
volume.
milliliters, yeah.
Grams is weight. cc's and milliliters are volume. They're 2 different things.
Right, I understand that, but what I'm saying is it's equal. In other words, in terms of the
It's not though, but okay.
Do you mean that it's equivalent? Like for instance,
equivalent, yeah.
So like 1 egg and a half is equivalent to the weight
Because
of
that's the way I was taught in school, when they taught me the metric system in school, they said 1 liter, right, in liquid equals 1 kilo in weight.
Cool.
That's the way it is.
Well, we can talk about it later, but that's only for water. It depends on the density of the object.
Yeah, we're talking about the water, right? That's what we're talking about.
Water.
Okay, whatever. It's we're going approximate now, right? We're not going to get too scientific right now, but yeah, but that's I mean that's the way I was taught. I don't know, whatever. Anyway,
you're referencing eggs at some point, an egg and a half or something.
Right, because egg is volume,
Right, but that's the volume and the mass of the egg are going to be different.
Sure, it's going to be different, but what I'm saying is that the Rambam made a translation,
Okay, so you're talking.
So we do translate between one and the other. That's what we do,
So when
we play around with that in halakha. That's how we do it, even though it's not exactly the same thing.
Okay, I thought you were talking about grams or the weight of the egg, not the water. The water is, you're correct.
Yeah, no, I understand, but what I'm saying is like this. Maybe you missed this class, right? You weren't here last night, right? You weren't here. So what we said last night was that the Rambam made a translation from volume to weight. So we use that translation to measure things in weight, which are supposed to be measured in volume. It's an approximation,
Okay.
That's what we do. That's how we do it. So therefore, right, as I already said, let's explain this, so we get it straight. We understand what we're talking about here. What we said was like this, right? That the sages, when they decreed these sizes, they decreed in volume. Okay. But what happens is, right, that sometimes it's hard to measure with volume. So therefore, the Rambam translated the volume into weight. So according to his translation, right, that's what it turns out to be. That it's about 80, right, 80 cc's, right, or grams, right. We play around with that a little bit.
That would make sense because I think an egg is usually about 50 grams. So egg and a half would be like
Right.
7.
But it's an approximation, it's not a sure thing, because the truth is, right, as I mentioned, the volume comes out to be more usually than the weight comes out to be larger than the volume with this translation.
I understand.
The weight will be bigger. But the original decree was made with volume. But now the custom, like all the books, when they write about these things in poskim, they write with weight. They don't write with volume. They say like grams, or milliliters, right? When it comes to liquids, they use milliliters. Okay, it's all good. I personally, by the way, what I do is I measure in volume. I prefer to do it that way. So what does that mean? I look at it, and I approximate with my eyes, if it's got that size or not. That's what I do. But sometimes, it's impossible to do that. For instance, like let's say you're eating, let's say some chips, or snack food, things like this, right? Potato chips and things like that, right? Or the similar corn chips, right? Whatever, all those things. So you can't really, estimate the volume there. It's just impossible. Your eye can't see it. So therefore, the proper thing to do is to go by weight. So what do? Look at the package, right? See how much it weighs. If it weighs 27 grams or even 25, right? That's kazait. All right, so you're supposed to make an after blessing on that. That's the way I do it. There are some who do it a little bit differently, whatever, but it's all good. There's different customs, whatever. It's all good. Some do everything with weight, that's because that's a custom now, everything does with weight. They weigh things, I've been to some houses, like Ashkenazi homes where, Passover, like they weigh the matzah, to see how much it is. They have a scale, and they weigh it. And then what they do is, they weigh it, and then they put it into a little baggie, a little bag, cellophane, and they give it to each guest. They tell you, here, this is what you have to eat. Right? They do it like that, right? So they're doing it by weight, as I said, right? But the truth is, really, it's supposed to be by volume.
You just eyeball it and give us twice as much as we need.
That's funny. You're funny, right? The truth is, right? You don't need to do twice as much, but you should do a little bit extra, just to be on the safe side, right? Because you don't want to make a blessing in vain, right? Bracha levatala. You don't want to do that. Okay, very good. We got the idea. So that's the way it works. Let's see Shulchan Aruch here. This was we saw it. Okay. We saw it. Okay, we're good. Let's go to the next one. Right. This one is an interesting halacha. Not very well known, this thing, because most people don't do it this way. Okay, so let's look at it a second. So says the Tur, Vivarech al natilat yadayim af al pi she'eno ela midrabanan. Look what it says, right? It says you're supposed to bless natilat yadayim when you bless, right, on the washing, even though it's only rabbinical. Right? Because they require to do washing even for mundane foods, right? As we mentioned. So let's look in the tour a little bit more. He's got some more stuff here. Right. Mishum Serech Truma, because of Truma. Perush Shelo Yavo Lechol Truma, because you shouldn't come to eat Truma without washing. Stam Yadayim Sheniot the Truma. So it says the hands are usually second degree of Truma, right? Regular hands, Uposot Truma. So therefore they disqualified Truma. Mishum Hachi Tiknu. So that's the reason why the sages decreed that you should wash also for mundane foods. Even though you don't really need this, like technically speaking. Why? Because mundane food doesn't really require tumah, doesn't require impurity. Good point. Okay. So now he says, right, explains, right? This is a technical issue, right, that we have with blessings. Right? What does the blessing say, right? Asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu. What does v'tzivanu mean?
That the commanded us.
Right, he commanded us, right? He sanctified us with his mitzvot and he commanded us, right? So now the question is like this, right? Obviously comes up, how can you say commanded us when it's only rabbinical? The Torah didn't command us that.
But we have to listen to the rabbis.
Right, that's it. That's the answer. You know me too well, right? You know these things. So okay, so there you go, right? That's the story. Because the rabbis, we have to listen to them according to the Torah. The Torah says we have to listen to the rabbis. That's why you have so many of these heretics. Most of them are on Facebook. These newfangled people who are trying to get into Judaism, trying to get closer to God, whatever, right? And they always have this in the beginning, they're always asking this question, like, why do you have to do the words of the rabbis? It's not written in the Bible. Show me where it's written in the Bible, this thing. They always tell you, right? So then the next, right, it's like a chess game, it's like checkmate. You have to do a checkmate on them. So they're gonna tell you, right? There's always the same steps, They're gonna tell me, where is that written in the Bible? You said it's written in the Torah. So I tell them, yeah, it's written in the oral Torah. They tell me, what oral Torah? Who said? So I always same thing always, right? The checkmate is always this, I tell them there's a pasuk in Dvarim, right? In the book of Deuteronomy that we're learning now, right? That we're studying now. It says over there that you have to listen to the Chachamim. And then I show them that, and they start freaking out, these people, no, can't mean that. It means something else. They try to flip it around, they like to do like a flipper, they flip it, they say, no, it doesn't mean that, it means something else. So they try to distort it, because it's hard for them to accept that. Their puny minds can't accept that,
A little bit of PTSD from being misled by our people who come from Christianity.
Right.
By the ministers and as I read this is my interpretation, and that's how they do things. So they assume that rabbis are doing the same thing, and they're not. I mean, it's
right. Absolutely, So that's what separates us from the goyim. The goyim also believe in the Bible, more or less. You know what I mean? But what they don't believe, they don't believe the oral Torah. That's the thing. And then they don't realize why we do that, and they say, well, that's not the Torah, so we have to go always through these steps with them, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, checkmate, boom, finished, right? The story's over. Same thing every time. Okay, so that's the way it works, right? So that's the reason why we say, but Sivanu commanded us, right? That's what the Torah is saying over here. But דבר שהוא מדרבנן והסמכו עליו דלא תסור, right? ולא יברך. So it says right in the pasuk, לא תסור, right? That's the abbreviation of that verse, right? What does it mean, לא תסור? Do not stray away from the words of the rabbis, right? You have to listen to the words of the rabbis. That's what it says. Oh, I didn't know. I don't mean something else. Talking about something else. Yeah, it's talking about something else. Yeah. Think about it for a while. Sleep on it. We tell them, sleep on it, and we'll talk to you tomorrow morning. Okay. Right. That's the way it is. So that's the next thing he says over here, right? Is that you shouldn't bless until after you wash your hands. So even though all the mitzvot we bless before doing the mitzvah, so it says here we don't do it that way. Why is that? Because sometimes his hands are not clean, right? So we don't want to make the blessing before because his hands may not be clean. So first we wash and then make the blessing. So therefore he says they decree, the rabbis, they should always bless. You should always bless after you wash, not before. That's what it says in the Torah.
I may be getting ahead of myself, but isn't it like we have to bless before we do the mitzvah, so we bless before we finish like drying our hands?
Right, yeah, that's it. Yeah, you're getting ahead, but that's true.
Sorry, didn't know if we covered that yet.
You can't argue with the truth. You know what I mean? And we don't want to either. Okay, so there you go. It's not that we're trying to. Okay. The whole thing about Judaism, the whole purpose is what? We're looking for the truth, that's what the whole thing is about, Like, there's a one saying, that goes around sometimes, amongst the amongst the people, whatever. It says like this, right? That what's the difference between our religion and their religion, right? It says like our religion, it's a religion made by God for a man, but their religion, is that a man, the man makes their own God. You know what I mean? In other words, they imagine what God should be according to their imagination. You know what I mean? That's the difference. It's the wrong order. It's like they make their God whatever they want their God to be. Whatever makes them happy. You know what I mean? Whatever makes them comfortable. That's what it is. So by us, God made us. By them, they make the God. It's different. Okay. There you go. So yeah, that's what we're talking about here. So let's go to Beit Yosef. So it says here, right? As we said, you gotta bless Netilat Yadayim, even though it's rabbinical. So it says Beit Yosef, even though he has to do it only rabbinically, you still have to bless. Right? So where is this pasuk? Right? Don't forget now, right? If some heretic talks to you on Facebook, so this is the verse you got to give them, right? Devarim Yud Zayin Yud Aleph, right? Deuteronomy 17:11. It's like 7-Eleven, Give them a 7-Eleven verse. Okay? So in Deuteronomy. And shut them up already, like shut up already, like get off my back, Oh God. That's what you gotta tell them, the Messiah Be'azir Klamar, the Chemad de Malav, not Asur, this Avenu Asur Divrei HaChachamim. As he says, right, Beit Yosef, from this pasuk we learn that we're commanded to do the words of the Chachamim. Kishenu Mekayimim, Divrei Chachamim, Hare Anu Mekayimim Mitzvot Hashem. So it says when we're upholding the words of the rabbis, we're also upholding the words of the Torah. That's the words of Hashem, of God. V'zet tam kol barachot she'anu omrim b'mitzvat derabanan. Right, so that's the reason why we make blessings for rabbinical mitzvot. And there's many of them, right? Like Hanukkah, right? We do the candles, and Purim, right? We do the Megillah, right? All those things are rabbinical. And the candle lighting, right, on Shabbat, that's also rabbinical. So we bless on all these things, even though they're rabbinical. Yes, we do. We bless because God commanded us to keep these things. That's the whole thing. Okay, so it says over here, as we said, right? The reason why they made this decree was because of Truma. Where is this in Chulin? Kuf Vav Amud Aleph. And Perish Rashi explains there, that he says, right, the hands, the rabbi said, the hands are secondary. impurity, right? Second degree, right? And they postled the truma, and they postled the truma. They disqualified truma. Why is truma postled by this? Because truma can go up to third degree. The third degree is the highest degree that it can go up to, right? So therefore, if the hands, which are second degree, touch the truma, it makes it third degree impure. And that renders it unusable, because the truma, once it becomes impure, the kohen cannot eat it anymore. So there's an issue there, right? Big issue there going on. Even though we don't practice these things today, nobody does, right? But it's the rabbis decreed, and so the decree stayed over. Okay, good. About chulin, no mehanya behu sheni, right? But it says, but if it were just, if you're just talking about mundane food, second degree, right, doesn't really do anything to it. Why? Because mundane cannot go up to third degree. Only truma can. That's the clincher. But nevertheless, the rabbis decreed anyway, even though apparently it wasn't really necessary. Okay? Because of truma, so why is that? So the ones who eat truma should be accustomed to wash their hands. They did it with mundane food. That's the end of it. Okay, who said this? Who was the big rabbi here? Rashi. Okay, there you go. Very good. So then it goes on. So what does that mean? The rabbis decreed, right, impurity on regular hands. They made them like second degree. By the way, why is that? Why did the rabbis say the hands are second degree? Anybody know? This is not from the Torah. So the answer is, the sages say, Yadayim askaniotem. You know what that means? That means, the hands, right, tend to grope around, so they get dirty all the time. They touch everything, people are very gropey, we're gropey, we're a gropey people, grope here, grope there. We touch everything, so what happens is eventually, right, you're going to touch some impure stuff, and that's why the rabbi said, we can assume, that your hands are, second degree because, you're groping around too much, baby, like too much, so, that's what happens to you. Okay, we get the point. So that's the way it works. That's why they require that to do it also with the mundane. Okay, so it goes on here in the Beit Yosef. So it says the tour. I'm sorry. What the tour wrote, what your tour wrote, that even though you didn't really need this, right? Because they cannot really accept that. What it means to say is that the what that means is they cannot acquire impurity from a second degree impurity, mundane foods. So there is impurity with mundane foods, but it cannot go up to third degree. Only goes to second degree. Now I'll give you another tricky question, tricky question. This one, right? Why does truma have third degree, right? And the mundane food has only second degree. Why is that? There's a reason for everything. So the reason is because truma, is holy. So the rabbis were more concerned, about becoming contaminated, So they made like more stringency on truma. That's why it goes up to third degree. Okay, anyway, let's go on. So it says, so now we're going to the other point, right? Which is, right, you should first wash and then, right, bless. That's what the Tur said, right? So comes Beit Yosef and says, regarding that, right? It's written in Tosfot and Rosh, right? These things. בפרק כמה דפסחים, and also in the first פרק of פסחים, זין עמוד ב', ובסוף פרק 3 יאכלו. Also in ברכות, נון א' עמוד א'. And so it's in two different places in the Talmud, this issue. Okay. So then he goes on to say, מה שכתב בעוד כיוון דמרק קודם לניגוב. And also he says, right, you should bless before. Oh, that we didn't see that yet. Let's go back to the Torah for a second. We missed something. That was what you mentioned, regarding that we dry, we bless before we dry. He mentions that the Torah here. So now we're up to it. Let's go there. So it says the Torah like this. The old command, so it says, since he also blesses before he dries his hands, so it's considered like before you did the mitzvah, as if, right? Whatever, right? As good as you can get. Shigam niguv hu mina mitzvah. Why? Because the drying of the hands is also a part of the mitzvah. So you should dry them well, he says. Dry your hands well. Okay, that seems to be already something else. Let's go back to Beit Yosef. Okay. So it says here, he brings a source for this, right? Ken Katvat Tosot. That's also in Tosot, and the Rosh also. Mikol makom en mashma divrem sham davka kamre tzarich levarech achar netilah. But he says the truth is, he says in their words it doesn't really imply like that you have to bless before. Mashma en sham davka kamre. Right. So in other words, it says that he says that they actually say that you should bless before the washing. Right, the Tosfot and the Rosh. But what they said was like this, right? You're really supposed to do it before you wash. But because of these reasons that we mentioned, the custom now is to do after you wash. So he's more precise, with the wording over here, how it's supposed to be explained. So he says, therefore, the two really should have written like that, because it implies from his words that you're not allowed to bless before you wash. And that's not really true. He should have written like this. Really, you should bless before the washing, right? Like it says in Sukkah, it says in the Talmud before. Because it says right there, you should do first the blessing before the mitzvah. But the custom is to do after. Why? Because sometimes his hands are not clean. So the Rambam says, Katav stam, kol hanotel yadav mevarech v'Rabbeinu Yerucham. So Rambam says you have to bless, right? He doesn't say when to bless, the Rambam. So he kind of steered clear of this question. He didn't really get into it. Interesting. And Rabbeinu Yerucham Katav shira'ah rabotenu noagim achar shivshuf yadayim mevarchin. So he says, that he saw that what they do, the custom, that after they rub their hands, then they bless. Before they put the water on it, they pour the water on it. Second time. So in other words, they're doing it like up to the first time. Because now they're already clean, right? One time they're already clean, so now you can already make the blessing. But it says everybody agrees that you have to bless before niguv, before the drying, right? So that everybody agrees on, right? You shouldn't bless after the drying. Okay, very nice. That's the whole Beit Yosef there. Okay, very good. So let's see Shulchan Aruch, right? So exactly what the Shulchan Aruch says, right? Like the Beit Yosef, he says, really, right? You're supposed to bless before the washing, right? Because you're supposed to do before the mitzvah. But the custom is to do after you wash, as we said, right? Why? Because sometimes your hands are not clean. So that's, and because of this, he says, they bless after that they rub their hands, because now his hands are clean. Before he puts the second water on it, right? So yeah, so in other words, he's telling you that some people have the custom that what they do is they wash once, each hand, and then they bless, and then they wash again. Okay, so says the Rama here, so he says, he says you can also do it before you dry your hands. Right? That's what most of us do, right? Because also the drying is part of the mitzvah. Therefore, it's considered like you're doing the blessing before the mitzvah. So look what he says, right? This is important to know. Let's say you forgot to bless, right? And you dried your hands. Should you bless? And so the Rama says yes. So let's see if there's a Mishnah Berurah here, right, who explains this a little bit, because it does require a little bit of explanation why we should bless after we dried our hands. Right, so the way the Mishnah Berurah explains like this, he says, this is according to the first reason that we gave, right, in the Shulchan Aruch, that the rabbis decreed this mitzvah differently than other mitzvot, because of the issue that sometimes your hands are not clean, so they allowed you to do after the mitzvah, So according to that, says the Mishnah Berurah, right, that's why you can bless also after you dry your hands as well. So he says, right, that when it comes to other mitzvot, it says Mishnah Berurah, right, if you already finished the mitzvah, right, we hold that you should not bless anymore. But here, right, the rabbis made an exemption because of the circumstances. Interesting. Okay, let's see what else he says here. So says the Mishnah Berurah, right? But on the other hand, he says, if you already made hamotzi, right, on the bread, he says, then you should not bless anymore the netilat yadayim. Okay. Then he goes on, right? So taz says differently, right? Not like the Rama. He says after you dried your hands, you should not bless anymore. So says the Mishnah Berurah, how do we paskin, right? Do we go like the Rama or like the Taz? So he says the majority of the poskim go like the Rama, that you should bless. But he says try to be careful, right? Not to do it this way, because there is a machloket, Nice.
That the bracha, like not saying the bracha doesn't prevent the mitzvah though, so.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah. The only thing is just, if we're going to say it or not, Absolutely. It does not prevent the mitzvah. So, but we don't want to lose that blessing, If we can hold on to it, we hold on to it if we can, As we said, right? Every time you bless him, he blesses you. So it's a good deal, we want to do that. And also we don't want to transgress the words of the rabbis, right? So okay, nice. The Mishnah Berurah is explaining it very well over here. So nice.
Kavatarav, can you repeat one more time, please, what the Taz said?
Yeah, the Taz is telling you shouldn't bless after you dried your hands.
Thank you.
But he says, right, most of the poskim say like the Rama. So therefore, he says you have what to rely on, to bless. No problem. Okay, interesting. There may be some more material on this, in other places. I'll try to check that out if I get a chance, to check that. Okay, beautiful. So I guess we'll stop there, B'ezrat Hashem. Thanks for coming. Be blessed with wealth and health and happiness. Chazak Baruch, Laila Tov, and we'll see you tomorrow, B'ezrat Hashem. Look forward to tomorrow, B'ezrat Hashem. God bless. All the best.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Okay.
Kavod Tov, thank you so much.
Bye.